Hi, I'm Susan Rutledge, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to use multiple artboards in a single document in Adobe Illustrator. What you see on my screen is one document with 11 separate artboards, and each one of them is a different size. In most software, you can have multiple pages in the same document, but those pages all have to be the same size. In Illustrator, they can be the same size, but they don't have to be. Now, why would you want separate artboards? Well, I'm going to get into that and show you some ways to use them, but first, I want to cover the basics and show you how to create and manipulate and work with, and finally how to export your artboards. I'm using Adobe Illustrator 2023. If you're using an older version, then when you come up to File, New, your new document panel may look different than mine, but the only thing you're not going to be able to do is select from your recent items. We're not going to do that anyway. I'm going to come over to the right side because I want to start a new document. The first thing I'll do is name the document Tutorial. I always start out giving my projects a name because if I have a software or a computer crash, the autosave for Illustrator is going to kick in and save the last few minutes depending on my settings. But if I don't have the document named, then there won't be anything to save. So be sure and always give your document a name. Next, I'm going to change the unit of measure from pixels to inches. Then I can choose the size of my artboards. I'm going to type in 2 inches for the width, 2 inches for the height, and then I could choose orientation if it wasn't a perfect square. This is going to be portrait, this is going to be landscape. I'll just leave this at portrait. And here is where we choose how many artboards we want to create. I can either use the up arrow or I can highlight the number and type in the number of artboards I want. Now, I am starting out with my artboards the same size, but once I'm in the document, I'll show you how to change those. Now, from this point on, any of the options that I choose are going to apply to all 9 of my artboards. I could choose to add a bleed. That would be if I needed my illustration or my background color to print all the way to the outside edges of the artboard. I'm not going to need that here, so I'll leave the bleed set to 0. Next, we have the advanced options. Your screen may look like that, but just twirl the options open. We have RGB color for web or video. We can also choose CMYK if we're going to be printing. Now for raster effects, I usually leave this set high at 300 ppi, but for screen, 72 is actually adequate. I'll leave the preview mode set to default, and then I have a few more settings I want to show you. I'll click here. And in this dialog box, I can determine how my artboards are going to display on my screen. Now, Illustrator already has the choices that I've made over here on the right, but let me just warn you, if I click on Profile and change to one of these, which I'm not going to do, I'll lose all of the other options which I chose over here on the right side. So I'm just going to leave this at Custom. Now right in here next to the number of artboards is where I choose how my artboards are going to display on my screen. I can choose either this kind of a Z effect where it goes left, right, and then starts back over left, right. Depending on how many artboards I have, I can go top, down, come back over top, down. I can choose horizontal, left to right, or if I click on this arrow, it'll go right to left in my numbering. I'm going to leave this left to right. And I can also have them display vertically from the top down. I can choose the spacing in between my artboards. I'm going to type in 0.20, and I can choose the number of columns. I'm going to leave this at 3. I'll leave everything else the same and choose Create Document. Here I have my 9 artboards in my tutorial document. Now, each one of these artboards has a number, but in order to see them, I've got to activate the Artboard tool. It's located on the left toolbar, and this is what it looks like. But we can also use the keyboard shortcut Shift-O. Now, once I have that activated, you can see all the different numbers on the artboard. Each one of the artboards has 2 numbers, 0, 1, and Artboard 1. Now, they're going to match up unless I delete artboards and add artboards. Let me show you. I'll select Artboard 9 and press delete. and then I'm going to drag out another artboard. This is the 9th artboard on the screen of 9 artboards, but I deleted artboard number 9 and Illustrator has now created artboard 10. If that bothers you, you can come over to the Properties panel and just highlight the number 10, type in 9 and press return, and now these two numbers match up. Now, in addition to being able to set the layout as you create the artboards, you can also change the layout in the Properties panel. My Artboard tool is active, so I can come over to the Properties panel, and in the Quick Actions, I can click on Rearrange All. And instead of having the Z effect like this, I can choose All Horizontal and choose OK, and now all of my artboards are lined up horizontally, or I can come back and move them back the way they were. All right, I'm going to add an object to one of my artboards. I'll get the Ellipse tool, keyboard shortcut L. I'll come up to the first artboard and place my cursor right here in the center, hold down the Shift and the Option keys. I'm dragging from the center out and dragging out a perfect circle. I'm going to change this to pink and give it a 1-point stroke, and then I'll get the Type tool, keyboard shortcut T, click down on the artboard and type the number 1, then get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and drag my 1 over and place it on the circle. I'm going to select the circle and the number, and let's align them horizontally and vertically. Then I want to show you a super quick way to duplicate this object on all of the artboards at the same time. All you have to do is select it and copy it, keyboard shortcut Command C, and then use the keyboard shortcut Shift, Option, Command V. And voila, you have it on every single one of your artboards in one quick step. Then let me show you what you can do. I'll get the Type tool, keyboard shortcut T. I'm going to select these and change the numbers, just highlighting them and typing in a replacement number. And this gives me now 1 through 9. Now I'm going to go back to the Artboard tool, but because I have the Type tool selected, you can see it highlighted on the left toolbar. I'm going to have to actually use the icon rather than the keyboard shortcut, because if I type in Shift O, I'm going to end up with a capital O next to my 9. So I'm going to click on the icon on the left side. My Artboard tool is selected, and let's just talk about a few of the ways that we can change our artboards once we have them created. Now, we've already seen we can select an artboard and delete it. We've also seen that we can come to the Properties panel and choose Rearrange All to change the way the artboards display on the workspace. And you saw how I used the Artboard tool to just drag out another artboard as if I was dragging out a rectangle. We can also copy our artboards. I'm going to slide this over to the left a little bit. And with Artboard 9 selected, I'm going to hold down the Option key and drag it to the right. And here we have a copy of the artboard. Now let me undo that, keyboard shortcut Command Z, and show you what happens if I uncheck Move Artwork with Artboard. Same thing, I'll hold down the Option key and drag to the right, but my artwork is not included when I copy the artboard. So make sure Move Artwork with Artboard is always checked. Let's get rid of this blank artboard, and then I'll show you how to make copies of several artboards at the same time. 9 is already selected. I'll hold the Shift key down to select multiples, then click on 6 and 3. Then with all 3 of the artboards selected, I'm going to hold down the Option key and drag to the right, and I've copied multiple artboards at the same time. I'm going to delete these, and when I delete them, I don't delete the artwork. So I've got to get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, select these and delete them, which moves me out of the artboard mode. So to get back in it, I'll use the keyboard shortcut Shift O. Now, if I want to make specific changes to a specific artboard, let me show you how to do that. I'm going to actually drag out another artboard with the Artboard tool active. I can either press the return key. That opens up the Artboard options dialog box. This is Artboard 19, or I can come over to the Properties panel, and in Quick Actions, I can click on Artboard Options and open the same panel here. I'm able to change the name of the artboard. Let's change this to 10. I'm able to change the width. Let's type in 2 and the height to 2. And I can add a center mark or crosshairs. So let's choose center mark and crosshairs. And if we were making this for video, I might even click show video safe areas. But I'll just check these for now and say OK. And we have a center mark and these crosshairs added. And just so you know, those won't print if you go to print your artboard. Another way to make changes to your artboards is to go up to Window and open up the Artboards panel. Here you have each one of the artboards listed in order. I can double click on these, change their name as well. When I type in extra here and press return, you can see that the name has been changed. This panel is especially useful if you want to change the names of all your artboards at the same time. We'll talk about why you would want to do that in a minute. I can change the layout of the artboards by clicking on this icon. I can use the up and down arrows to change the hierarchy of where the artboard is. So let's just move it up to place 3. So if I rearrange my artboards, see what Illustrator does. Let's move that back down and change that again, and we're back in the same order. Let me select Artboard 9, and I'm going to click on this little icon to add a new artboard. But using this icon only gives me an artboard and no artwork, so I'm going to delete that. Well, adding that artboard shifted everything to the left, and I want to recenter my artboards on the screen, so I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Option Command 0 and move up to the top right icon and click here. With this flyout, I can choose New Artboard, which is the same as this icon right here. I can choose Duplicate Artboard, which is going to duplicate the artboard that is selected, and it's going to include the artwork. I can delete the selected artboard, but it's not going to delete the artwork. I can delete empty artboards. We have one at the bottom here. We're going to delete that. Then we have a couple of other options. Convert to Artboards allows you to take a rectangular object and convert it to an artboard. We're not going to be doing that in this video. Next, we have the Artboard options and rearrange all artboards, but we've already talked about those in the quick actions, so I'm not going to go over those again. So let me just go ahead and close out of this option, get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and select our 9 here and delete it. Now, even without the Artboard tool active, I'm able to select an artboard and work with it. I'm going to click on this top left artboard, and there's a very fine black stroke around the outer edge, which may be hard for you to see in the video, but that tells me this is the artboard that's selected. Now, if I want to zoom in on that artboard, all I have to do is use the keyboard shortcut Command 0, and that zooms the artboard into the center of my screen, and I can work on it. Now, if I want to zoom back out and see all of the artboards, I use the same keyboard shortcut I used a minute ago to simply center the artboards on the screen. That is Option Command 0. And that brings all of the artboards back into view, and it centers them in my workspace. I can also come to the Properties panel, and under Document, I see Artboard. Now, 1 doesn't mean there's just one artboard. That means number 1 is selected right now. But if I click here and I choose a different number, I'm going to choose 4. It's going to choose it, and it's going to center it in my workspace. I can move to the left and move to the third one and the second one, and I can move to the right. And then you're just going to have to remember the keyboard shortcut to move back out, and that is, again, Option Command 0. One other thing you can do in the Properties panel is click on Edit Artboards down below these numbers, and that's going to move you back into the Artboard editing mode, and you're able to edit individual artboards. But I'm not going to do that now. Let's move on. Now, I've already shown you how easy it is to create one object on an artboard, copy it, and then paste it on all the artboards at the same time using that keyboard shortcut, Shift, Option, Command, V. From here, if I was working on a logo, I could make all sorts of changes to the colors and the different shapes and be able to compare those side by side. Let me show you another example of a side-by-side comparison. I'll move to a document where I have a little house drawn, and I'm going to zoom out, keyboard shortcut Command minus. I'll press that several times till I get the size I want, and then move this artboard to the top left area of my workspace, and then I'm going to create some copies. I'll get the Artboard tool, keyboard shortcut Shift O. I want to make sure I have Move Artwork with Artboard selected. Then I'll hold down the Option key and just drag to the right. And I'm going to drag one more time, and I'll have 3 identical artboards. Then I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and select this second illustration. I'll come up to Edit, down to Edit Colors, and choose Recolor Artwork. And then let's just manipulate the color around a little bit, and we can look at some different color options. Then I'll select this illustration, and we'll do the same thing. Edit Color, Recolor Artwork. All I'm doing is dragging color stops around until I find colors that I like. And you can keep adding artboards and change the color scheme up until you either choose the color theme that's right for your project, or you can export all the different color choices and let your client pick which one they like the best. And here's where changing the name of the artboards can be helpful. I'm going to come up to Window, come back down and get that Artboards panel again. And for Artboard 1, we'll just do Peach House. For 2, we're going to say Pink House. And for 3, we're going to say Purple House. And we'll close that out. Now, some of you may want to either export or print your artboards without any kind of space around the illustration. And right now you can see that we do have a little white margin showing. But I can select the artwork and come up to Object, down to Artboards, and choose Fit to Selected Art, and it will trim the artboard to the exact size of my illustration. Now, if you look closely, the artboard is actually a little bit wider on the right side. I'm going to zoom in. I'll get the Zoom tool, keyboard shortcut Z, and let me show you why. I have a drop shadow that's added here, and it actually has a few pixels that come out further than the green grass here. So if I want the artboard trimmed to fit right along this right side of the grass, I'm going to get the Direct Selection tool, keyboard shortcut A. I'll click on the artboard to deselect everything, and I'm going to select just my roof. I'll come over to the Properties panel and remove the drop shadow. Then let's zoom back out to show all of the artboards. Keyboard shortcut Option Command 0. I'll get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, select all of the illustration, go back up to Object, down to Artboards, and choose Fit to Selected Art. And notice now it's a perfect fit. Now I need to delete the drop shadow on these other 2 houses. I'll select the roof and click delete, and select the roof and click delete. Then I'll select this middle house, go back up to Object, down to Artboards. And I've got to be careful because if I click on Fit to Artwork Bounds, Illustrator is going to take all of the artwork that's on all of the different artboards and put it in one single artboard, which is not what I want. So I've got to be sure and go down to Fit to Selected Art. I'll click on the artboard to deselect that design and get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, then select the third artboard and the artwork, and choose Object, Artboards, Fit to Selected Art. Now when you get ready to export, if you want to export each one of these artboards individually, Illustrator has a way for you to do that. I'm going to move up to File, down to Export, and choose Export As. Now I'm going to shorten Small Pastel House, and you'll see why in a minute. I'll just highlight this and type in SPH. I'll leave .png because I'm going to use the PNG format. I have a lot of different choices, but I want my background to be transparent, so I'm going to leave this on PNG. Next, I'm going to click Use Artboards, and I can choose either to export all of the artboards or I can choose a range. If I had 50 artboards and I only wanted to choose my favorites, I'd type in the ones that I wanted to export here. But I'm going to change this to all and then choose Export. Illustrator is going to ask about the resolution. I'm going to leave that at high and leave my background color at transparent. If you want white as a background, then just click on white, but I'm going to leave mine at transparent and then say OK. Now let's minimize Illustrator, and you can see my 3 artboards that have been exported. And I shortened that name to SPH so that I could read the description of each of the artboards: Peach House, Pink House, and Purple House. Now on my desktop, we do see a little white border around the illustration and white in the background. But when I place those in a document, neither one of those are going to show. So let me come up to File, New, and I'm going to choose a 15 by 10 document, click Create. Then I'll get the rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M, click on the artboard and type in 15 by 10. And I want to center that, and let's give it a dark green color. Then I'll click on the artboard to close out the swatches panel. I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and click on the canvas to deselect the artboard. And then I'm going to go up to File, down to Place, and I'm going to choose Peach House and click Place. And here's my house with no white margins and a transparent background. Exactly how I exported it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and learned a lot about using artboards in Adobe Illustrator. There really are some great applications for using artboards, and I hope as you're working on your projects, you'll think of those and take advantage of them. I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so that you don't miss any of my future tutorials, and I'll look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye now.